first and foremost, you're selling, right? You're selling yourself, you're selling solutions, you're selling ideas. The mortgage agent's job is to take you from problem to solution, right? And that's all we do.
Because there are a lot of people who I feel it's probably not for them because they felt it's a desk job, but then they realize that it's a sales job.
But then focus on the niche that's going to make you rich. Traditionally speaking, the industry's had about an 80% drop-off rate. Most people aren't meant to be entrepreneurs. And so it's hard for a lot of people that came out of a corporate life or worked for someone else to have to sit down and dictate their own activities and their own schedule. An engaged agent will succeed over time. The biggest mistake I made in the first decade of my work in this industry was not being driven by money. The average mortgage agent in the industry makes under $80,000 a year.
All right, so for everyone who doesn't know, Matthew Shantz is my coach, and he has been a mortgage agent for how long now?
15 years.
15 years. So he knows a lot about brokering. He has seen through a lot of times, including, the last crisis that we had. So not just as a mortgage agent, but also as an investor. So today's video is all about, a lot of people reach out to me and say that, we want to become a mortgage agent, and they see me on social media and they feel that it's easy to do that. And I'm not saying it's not, it's just, there are certain things that we need to put in place, and there are certain steps that we need to take, in order to become that, top tier agent. And I'll be just talking to Matthew about, and he's also the director of agent development.
Yes.
At Valco Financial, which is one of the amazing brokerages, with DLC. I think he's the perfect person to talk about this. So Matthew, thank you so much for doing
No problem, Nav. I'm happy to do this with you. So, I think one of the important things for people to understand right out of the gate with mortgage agent and brokering as a whole is that it's a sales job, right? First and foremost, you're selling, right? You're selling yourself, you're selling solutions, you're selling ideas, you're selling information, you're educating, and I feel education is still sales in its own way, right? And that you're not getting into a numbers job, you're not getting into a bank job, you're getting into a sales job. And sales is often dirty work, right? One of your recent podcasts covered that. Sales is one of the most powerful, positive tools out there when used towards good, right? The mortgage agent's job is to take you from problem to solution, right? And that's all we do.
Yeah, makes sense. You summed it really well. There are a lot of people who, come to me, and I'm sure they come to you as well, and they say that, is this the right profession for me? So first, let's talk about, who is this not for?
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of people who I feel it's probably not for them because they felt it's a desk job, but then they realize that it's a sales job. Like for me, I felt that it's a sales job, but I didn't realize there was paperwork. Right?
Yeah, you were kind of backwards on that one,
I was a little bit, different there. But so who is it not for?
So there's two rules that sort of two paths that sort of exist to becoming a mortgage agent, right? There is the document intense path, and that will lead you more towards a career in underwriting, right? Or fulfillment or support, right? And don't get me wrong, those people are super important. Firsthand how vital your back end team is, right? And there's great options to moving in that direction. And so for your introvert personality types, for your numbers people, for your data people, detail-driven humans make amazing underwriting staff, right? It doesn't mean that you're going to be a bad salesperson, but you're going to be numbers focused, right? You're going to have to stretch and push harder to work on the sales side and develop your sales skills. The other side of the coin is you've got your sales guy, who is the fast-talking extrovert, no details, end goal, right? We need to slow them down and teach them a little bit of the detail side because, as much as this is a sales job, there's still paperwork and documents and numbers that they are responsible for too. And so, it's interesting because you have two exact opposite hats to wear in this job. And so anybody can do it, right? You just have to know what your weaknesses are and what your strengths are and be ready to find somebody who can educate you in that area, and ideally find a team that will support you where you're weakest, right? If you're an outbound salesperson and that's your energy, that's your drive, you need to find somebody who's the detail guy to have your back, right? You know, Matt, your Matt, who watches your back, right? He's about as detailed as they come, right? And his abilities compensate, so you don't have to worry about that side. You get to wear one great hat, and that's ultimately the end goal we're shooting towards. Is yes, you have to learn every step of the way. You had to underwrite some deals first, right? You had to learn all parts of the business, but then focus on the niche that's going to make you rich. Right? It's either going to be on the sales or the doc side. So, if either of those interest you and you weren't scared by that, then you're probably going to be okay in this business overall.
And I think there's one perception, because all mortgage agents who are probably doing well are on social media, and people feel that, that's the standard. Or not even, that's where we want to reach. That's the minimum that I'll be able to do. So in your experience, what does a good agent, who is dedicated, let's talk about full-time first, that we talk about part-time, but let's say a full-time agent in their first year, how many deals would they do and what would it translate into dollar value?
So to be very realistic, right? Most agents won't do a deal in their first 6 months, and it might take up to 9 months for them to even receive funding or compensation for one that they've worked on. In the first year, it's very unlikely that a mortgage agent is going to do much beyond pass, breaking even. Right? And traditionally speaking, it's a 2-year journey to a sustainable income. Normally within the first 2 years, you're going to either build the foundations of a business and begin a path towards success, or you're going to give up and go home. And traditionally speaking, the industry's had about an 80% drop-off rate.
In 2 years?
In 2 years, most won't make it past because they didn't fully grasp what they were getting into. Most people aren't meant to be entrepreneurs.
But why does it take so long?
Because people are stubborn. People are stubborn, so it takes a while to figure out that this isn't the place for you. You're going to try really hard for a long time to get your foundations going. Most people don't have that entrepreneurial drive that's necessary to wake up every morning and dictate your own schedule, be your own boss, be responsible to yourself. Even though I coach agents, I'm not their boss, right? And I don't manage agents, and that firsthand. I mean, I've never sat down and managed you. That's not my responsibility. That's your job, right? And so it's hard for a lot of people that came out of a corporate life or, worked in for someone else to have to sit down and dictate their own activities and their own schedule and, find where to be busy, And we're stubborn enough as people to normally give it up to 2 years before quitting, right? You can probably, if you were really aware of yourself, figure out within 6 months if this was the job for you or not. Your first 6 month activities are super.
And what's that trigger? When do you know? Let's say, someone is watching, he has been a mortgage agent for like 6 months, 9 months. They've probably not done a deal like we discussed. And how do you decide as that, person that is this for me or not? And because internally you're like, you've invested so much.
Exactly. I have time, money, you're almost $2,000 just to get started in the business, right? You're going to be paying monthly, generally some sort of fee to whichever network you belong to or brokerage you belong to, right? There's a financial commitment that goes into this job. If you almost need someone to tell you it's not for you because you're so, like most people who are stubborn, you're so in the mud. You're so, it's just around the corner. It's just around the corner that you don't realize that I haven't taken the activities to get me around the corner, right? The activities that we do on our day-to-day will determine whether we're going to be successful.
And what are those?
The first one is door knocking, and not actually saying go out and knock on doors. I mean, sure, do it if you've never done it before. Get the experience, cold call a little bit. But are you meeting and building relationships with somebody every day? Are you actively growing your network and building a community around yourself every day, right? If you can't schedule some time each day to be somewhere, go somewhere, meet someone new, build a relationship, reach out, then you're probably not meant to be in sales, right? And it doesn't have to be, hey, I walked in and cold called you. I could follow you on social media and start commenting in your comments section and start building traction with you, slowly but surely making little steps forward. But if you're not taking an outbound activity every day, you're probably not in the right field, right? The next thing is, are you educating every day? Every mortgage agent has to learn something new every day, right? For 15 years, I've tried to learn something new every day. And, there's still so much more to learn out there, so many more things that I'm not a master.
Keeps changing, right?
And it changes all the time, And I'll spend the next 15 years of my life learning new stuff, right? But you have to dedicate yourself to being a student. And if you're not learning something new every day, and if that doesn't excite you or interest you, it's probably not the field for you, right? You need to be, connecting and engaging with your colleagues every day. And this one will catch a lot of people off guard. Like, oh, I'm my own boss. It's my own business. I do my own thing, right? But as well as I do that it's a lonely job.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
And, we moved into a fully digital world over the past couple months or a couple of years, right? The idea of having an office really fell to the side from a lot of people. We all went off and started doing our own thing in our own spaces. But, you have to have activities and events that draw you back to your core, to your key group of people that will support and collaborate with you. They may not understand exactly what you're doing, but there's insights that can be shared. There's knowledge that can be,
and that's one of the reasons why I never miss my, the catch-up that we have, the group catch-up, right? It's not necessarily that I'm there to learn, but it's important to also realize that there are other people in the same boat and you're not lonely.
Exactly. We have to collaborate with our colleagues and we have to engage, right? An engaged agent will succeed over time. It may be a slow path, but the number one thing I look at for agent success is engagement. A disengaged agent will fail every time.
A lot of people have money as a driver.
Yeah.
A lot of people who have joined the industry, looking at Nolan Matthias and Tracy, and they just feel that this is a place where you can make a lot of money.
Absolutely,
and I know from experience that money is not the driver for these agents, right? So, how much money would you make as, let's say, a third-year agent? On average in your experience?
Yeah. So it was interesting, and I like the part about the money driver, because for the biggest mistake I made in the first decade of my work in this industry was not being driven by money. It took our mutual mentor, Suzanne, to really change my perspective. And you can be money driven without being greedy. And in my background, I'd always equated money with bad things in life, and that greed was prevalent. But when I learned that, finally came to a conclusion that money was good, and you can be money driven in a good manner, right? I started making a whole lot more of it. It was really interesting because you do get what you focus on, right? And so the range that a mortgage agent can make early on in their career varies significantly, right? Your experience, your background, your plan, your values, who who you're connected to, all these things will be part of the mix. The average mortgage agent in the industry makes under $80,000 a year.
80,000.
Yeah, under 80 is the average. That sucks. In a lot of cases.
Then why do it?
That's a great question, right? Because the other end of the spectrum is that you can make hundreds, if not millions of dollars, hundreds of thousands.
And what makes them stand out?
Yeah, and it's going to be your system. It's going to be your practice. It's going to be what you put into the business is what you're definitely going to get out of it, right? And that's what's really cool about it. because it is based on me, what I'm gonna get from it. The more I work, the harder I work, the smarter I work, the better my systems become, the more I refine my practice, the more I refine my skills, the better I get at doing my job, the more money I make from it. And there is no cap. You know,
There's no cap.
that's the big key piece. There's no cap, you know, and I've got no boss. I have a boss, but as a mortgage agent, right?
Yeah.
In my mortgage business, I don't have a boss.
Yeah.
I'm working my hours. No one's going to yell at me for taking vacation. No one's going to yell at me for spending time with my family. I can leave my desk at 2:00 on a Tuesday afternoon.
And we are doing it right now. It's Wednesday.
It is, you know, 3:00 on a Wednesday, and I am not behind my desk at my computer, you know, answering my phone, right? And I have a level of freedom that I don't think I could end up back in the corporate world. I think I would have a very hard time reporting to somebody again, right? Because there is something to be said about the freedom and the ability to create a lifestyle around yourself. And so I would encourage agents to involve themselves, not based purely on money, but the life they want to have, right? And, you know, your life changed significantly from your previous job to this one, right? You know, opportunities became very different. Your day is nothing like it used to be, right?
100%.
You know, and you were empowered with a level of control over how you want your life to turn out that you didn't have when you reported to a manager. You know, and I think that's the really cool piece of this, right? You know, and people say, well, I could do that with almost any profession. Yeah, realtor, insurance agent, any of these, you know, commission, self-employed sales jobs. Yeah, they're all the same.
Yeah, 100%.
Right? It's just,
You just need to
pick the one that fits you, you know?
Poison, right? So pick your poison. So,
Exactly,
so just for context,
Yeah.
you know, Matthew has, you know, like coached a lot of agents, including me. So I only know me.
Yeah.
And I did 85 files exactly
Yeah.
in my first year, and I'm at 100 and something, 120 maybe, year to date.
Yeah.
Right? That's 200 files in less than 2 years.
Yeah, which is insane.
Why do you think, now I don't have that context because
No.
I have not known.
Exactly.
I don't know any other agents, right? So, but why do you think I was able to do it? And
Yeah.
it's important, and I'm not trying to bloat here.
No,
It's
no,
not-
no.
But it's important to understand, why do you think, as a person who has coached me and other agents, why did I do 200?
And I'm crystal clear with new agents about this who have maybe seen your work and are coming to me because of that, right? And you know, the first thing I say is you're never going to be Navjot Bindra, right? Unless you come to the table with potato talkies behind you, unless you come to the table with your wife, you know, on board with you, unless you come to the table with 200,000 followers that will already trust you, you came with the community. And the trick is most mortgage agents will need to build a community, right? Your success was pushed ahead 5 to 8 years because you had a community developed already, right? The most powerful tool any mortgage agent has is the community they surround themselves with, right? When you master community, when you master that network, when you become the linchpin in the communication that holds them together, right? That's where your business all comes from. So for most agents, they're going to spend the first 2 years figuring out that they need community. They're going to spend the next 2 years failing at building one because they go about it by force instead of allowing to organically form around them, right? And then they're going to spend the next 4 years actually trying to establish it. And, you know, I tell a lot of people that you were about 8 years ahead just on the community side, right? Because I've seen many agents that do, you know, 100, 200 deals in a year. But it's later in their career when they already had that network in play. If you come to the table with all those things, yes, you'll put rocket fuel in your business, right? It would be that way with any business. So if you were a realtor, if you were an insurance agent, you know, if you're a car salesman, the result would have been the same because all sales jobs require that magic pill, which is community.
So let's talk about more tactical, right?
Yes.
So how do you become a mortgage agent? Like a lot of people ask me, how do you become a mortgage agent? We all know that REMIC is there.
REMIC's great.
So REMIC.
You can just go through Mortgage Professionals Canada and take the exam one of those 2 ways, right?
How much time does it take for preparation?
Good weekend.
Yeah,
It's
ridiculously easy.
It's
right? In Ontario.
really straightforward in Ontario. And I'm only going to talk about Ontario because that's my area of expertise, right? But that's not where the learning happens. I look at it this way. If you've taken the course, congratulations, you now speak mortgage. you're now able to communicate in my language. It doesn't mean you're fluent yet, but I can say words and you should be able to understand them. GDS, TDS, LTV, mortgager, mortgagee. These words should make sense when I say them, right? And that's what you walk away with, right? There's no business structure. There's no how-to. You actually use a calculator going through parts of the test. I haven't picked up a calculator in a decade, right? There's things, you learn the basics so that you can have a conversation. Then you get put to a brokerage and find someone who will actually show you how to do the business.
So you basically do the REMIC course, you take the exam, then you find a brokerage. Now let's talk about the brokerage.
Yes.
So how do you find a brokerage?
Well,
what are let's say 2 things or 3 things max that you should look when you're
absolutely. So, there's 1,000 different brokerages out there, right? Under different networks, with different offerings. So the first thing to do is to figure out which network you want to belong to. Not even brokerage yet. Do you want to be a Dominion Lending Centers agent, like us, right? Do you want to be a mortgage centers agent? Do you want to be a mortgage architects agent? Do you want to work for TMG?
But why is it that, for me, it was not that important.
Yeah.
I was working, I didn't even know they existed.
Exactly.
No, I was like, I just want to work with people who make sense to me and who speak my language. Not the mortgage language, but my ambition language.
Well, and the reason why we look at the network as an important start point is because there's going to be a culture from the top down a lot of the time. And the network tends to provide the brokerage with the tools to support their agents. So, we use a program called Velocity that's tied to the Dominion Centers group of companies, right? Some of our back-end portals and the resources. You want to know the resources that you're going to have access to. Most agents will be dependent on their network for their first website, their first CRM. These things are all going to be tied there, and you should know what the network's going to provide you. Okay, you won't learn about the network per se until you sit down with the brokerage, right? Because networks don't typically recruit per se on their own, but you always want to ask the brokerage, hey, what does the network give you? Okay, and so we have this system in play to support, right? You always want to know that piece. Okay, what systems do you have to support me? What makes you you? What's your individual taste, right? The other thing you want to do is check on the administration of a brokerage. Who's taking care of payroll? Who's taking care of your compliance, right? Are your bills going to be paid on time? Are you going to get paid when your deals close? What are these things out there, right? You need to make sure that the brokerage will pay you. I don't know about you, but I'm not doing this for charity.
Absolutely.
And so how do they pay is an important question to ask. Some brokerages pay monthly. We pay weekly, How does that impact, right? I always ask this question. Have you ever missed a payroll? That's a big one because the moment a brokerage misses a payroll, they lose credibility. It is important they have a dedicated staff to support the back end of the agents, right? If there are no administrators, there is no brokerage.
Just to give a point of reference, like we get our commissions just like a paycheck. It's almost like there's a portal. We know exactly, like I got the email today, my payroll, my money will come in on Friday, and every Wednesday I know exactly how much money I'm going to get on Friday. And there's a breakup of, which deals are funding, and, so everything is there, just like a pay stub. It's just a commission pay stub, right? So I think those systems are really important.
It's so important. You get your T4As, right?
Yeah, we get
it came in on time. These are important pieces. And it's wrong to assume every brokerage house does it that way, right? If I'm only a 5-man, 6-man show, and I don't have an administrator and the broker of records trying to do it, all this stuff like that can be a nightmare, right? So it's important to know what the support system looks like.
So education system.
Yeah.
I did not hear commission splits. Let's
No,
talk about
okay,
commission
yeah.
So, what would a typical brokerage with good education and good systems, because that I think
It costs
should
money.
be non-negotiable for you, would a good split be?
Yeah. And so there's a couple, commission splits are interesting. And I would always ask when I'm interviewing at a brokerage, what do you split on? Because we don't get paid just one thing on a deal, you know, and I might have to get a protective order on myself, hire a security guard for this piece because I'm going to make some enemies here. But every deal carries up to 4 components of paying it. A finder's fee is the chief, right? The finder's fee is normally the biggest component of a deal, and that's standard almost industry wide. About 80 basis points. A basis point is 1% of a percent.
0.8%. 0.8%.
Yeah. Yeah. So most deals carry a finder fee. Then there's what's called a volume bonus. And this changes from brokerage to brokerage because it's dependent upon how much volume is done. Some brokerages will have you do a volume bonus based on you alone. Some brokerages pool their volume together and have more leverage, and the volume bonus is based against the whole, right? I know which one I would prefer, for sure. I'm not saying it is right, but that's another thing. Some brokerages will pay on both finder's fee and volume bonuses. Some will only pay on finder's fee. Then there's a thing called efficiency. Efficiency is, did you fund what you submitted? Efficiency is a very difficult dollar amount to get, right? Because it's hard to fund every deal you submit. Lenders typically want to see somewhere between 70 and 80% of the files that are submitted to them fund. Okay? Do you get paid? Do I get paid an efficiency bonus if I earn it, right? And then the last thing are points, right? Some lenders pay us points. Some of us give us little extras here and there, right? You know, do those come to me? Do they stay with the brokerage, right?
And there are some things that are a given, and a lot of people don't know that when they join. When you join the industry, you need connections with lenders, right? So let's say you want to do a file with one of the top banks, like you need those connections, you need those business development managers, and that's the reason why even if you are doing everything on your own, you still have to give some part of it to the brokerage because of those connections and those like efficiencies that they have already built and the relationship that they have already built with the banks and the lenders.
A great example, one of our top lenders, which is one of the big banks out there, you have to do 10 million in volume per year to sign up with them, right? 10 million in volume is a lot for a young agent. It's very hard.
It's about 18 files, 18 to 25.
18 to 20 deals with that lender alone, right? Just to be registered with them. I mean, I don't know many young agents in their first 10 years. You couldn't do that with a single lender.
With that lender,
but these are the things that exist. There's certain lenders that require volume numbers, there's certain lenders that require file numbers, right? And to access the highest pay grades from them, you need a lot, right? And so that's where the brokerage really does earn some value back, right? What kind of staffing in the back end do they have, right? Who's supporting you from that side, right? If it's nobody, well then, I'm sorry, like, is my money going into your pocket? Right? I like when the money's being spent. Thank you. Do I have a coach or a manager? This is a big piece for me. So, I make a good sum of money by being a coach, right? I get paid a difference between my split and your split, right? Am I here just telling you what to do, or am I helping to grow your business?
And do brokerages provide leads?
No, because they shouldn't.
They shouldn't, right? Yeah.
I don't think they should. There are some out there that will provide you cold call lists and things like that. I don't think that's valuable. I think that actually cripples an agent in the long run, because the number one job that you have is to build your network. The number one responsibility every new agent should have is to go build your network. If I'm feeding you leads, like, are you going to spend time building your network, or are you going to become reliant upon me? Right.
And you know what I've realized is when we are in the money, in business of money, trust is very important, and people like to trust, you know, people who are, or mortgage agents who are like them. And I'm not talking about appearance. I'm talking about, you know, values. I'm talking about, you know, mindset. I'm talking about, you know, like relevance. And I'm talking about, you know, like, can you relate to that, you know, mortgage agent, or, you know, will you understand? So I think all those things are really important. And if someone is handing you leads, like I get a lot of leads from realtors. I'm very open about it, right? I get a lot of leads from realtors, but like 5% of those actually translate into volume. There are only 2 or maybe 3 leads in my 200 that actually translated, you know, that came from realtors, that translated into volume. They actually closed, and that's because you know, there was no match in values. And that's where, you know, I think
it's so hard, Nav. It's so hard because we want the easy way to money, and we want someone else to do the hardest part of the job for us, right? But the hardest part of the job is building the client base, and that's what you're being paid for, right? You know, creating a solution is great, right? But if you don't have a client in front of you, who's the solution for, right? And so, you know, I like numbers, right? And I've always tried to quantify what the different parts of the job are worth, right? If I were to split it off and pay everyone for a piece of it, what does that work out to, right? And developing a solution, in my mind, works out to about 25% of the job, right? Because, yeah, it's super important and needs to be done. But bringing the client in the door, that's half of it right there, right? All the other support pieces, all that, they can be a quarter too. But half the work is bringing that client in the door. If you don't learn how to do that, if you become dependent on someone else to do that for you, right, you're not going to be a great mortgage agent. You might be an amazing underwriter. You might be an amazing underwriter, right? But you're never going to be the mortgage agent.
That's amazing, Matt. I'm sure that anyone who is contemplating, you know, becoming a mortgage agent, I think it will be very useful for them. We talked about the steps. We talked about the, you know, like the key things that you need to look at when you're choosing a brokerage. We talked about a lot of things, leads. You know, if you have any questions, just, you know, put it in the comments, and we'll probably do a live on Instagram or something like that. You know, just to make sure that those questions are also answered. And yeah, thank you so much, Matt, for this.
You're so welcome.